And in next 18 or 20 minutes, we are going to discuss about multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. And the objectives of my presentation is to discuss MIS-C, its background, how it originated, case definitions, epidemiology, pathogenesis, clinical features, management strategies, and then we'll summarize the presentation. We'll begin with the case study, which will give us a broad overview how these patients with MIS-C present and what are their investigations or how to proceed with investigations and their treatment and what is their usual outcome. So this patient is a 5-year male child who was admitted in October 2020 with a 7 days history of fever and pain abdomen and vomiting for 3 days. On triage examination showed that he had respiratory distress and hypotensive shock, and he had rash, facial puffiness, pallor, and mild abdominal tenderness. So based on this history and examination finding, the usual diagnosis like any tropical infection, including scrub typhus, dengue fever, or enteric fever, or it could be bacterial sepsis or TSS. And as we were in the midst of pandemic, diagnosis of multisystem inflammatory syndrome of childhood was also considered. So immediate management included fluid resuscitation, vasoactive drugs, mechanical ventilation, and antibiotics to cover for bacterial sepsis and scrub typhus. Routine investigation showed that he had hyponatremia, hypoalbuminemia, lymphopenia, and thrombocytopenia. The CRP was sky high, and as was the procalcitonin. The etiological workup showed that dengue NS1 and serology was negative, malaria smear was negative, blood culture was sterile, and scrub serology was negative. And as part of routine workup, his SARS-CoV-2 PCR was also negative. So as we considered MIS-C as one of the possibilities, so further investigations were done because he had various lab. So as we have considered the possibility of MIS-C, the other workup for MIS-C was also done, which showed that very high pro-BNP, TROP-T was negative, D-dimer and ferritin were elevated, fibrinogen was high, LDH was elevated, and his SARS-CoV-2 serology or COVID serology was positive. Echo showed a low ejection fraction, dilated coronary arteries, and mild to moderate TR and MR. So based on the clinical features, diagnostic investigations, and echocardiographic finding, the diagnosis of multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children was considered, and specific treatment included intravenous immunoglobulin 2 gram per kg, methylprednisolone 10 mg per kg for 3 days, aspirin, and he recovered and discharged after 7 days of hospital stay. And at 6 months of follow-up, he was doing well and his echocardiographic parameters were normal. So this is just a broad overview how a patient with MIS-C present. The presentation may be very severe or sick, but with appropriate treatment, this patient used to recover. So the MIS-C or this post-COVID inflammatory syndrome was identified a year back, but it had acquired many names, the most common of which is multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, which is MIS-C. And this is the terminology we will use in presentation today. Other common names are PIMS-TS or Pediatric Inflammatory Multisystem Syndrome temporally associated with SARS-CoV-2. It is also known as Kawasaki-like syndrome, atypical Kawasaki, or incomplete Kawasaki, or Kawa COVID-19 syndrome. So how it all began? So first about PIMS-TS was there in UK. And when there was first peak of COVID-19 was there in UK, at that point of time in mid-April, the clinician identified a cluster of 8 children in age range of 4 years to 14 years who were previously well. And all the children were presented with hyperinflammatory syndrome with shock and MODS. And the presentation was similar to Kawasaki disease shock syndrome. And the common presentations were unrelenting fever, rash, conjunctivitis, edema, generalized extremity pain, and GI symptoms. The GI symptoms are very prominent in those children. All had warm vasoplegic shock, which was refractory to volume resuscitation, and all required noradrenaline and mainly known as vasoactive support. All these children had small effusions, which was suggestive of generalized hyperinflammation, but there was no significant respiratory involvement. In all these children, the SARS-CoV-2 PCR was negative and serology was positive. They all had elevated CRP, procalcitonin, ferritin, triglyceride, and D-dimer, and bright coronary arteries on echocardiography. One of these child had giant coronary aneurysm, and the treatment was it was like any child with Kawasaki disease. They given IVIG, antibiotics, aspirin, and 7 received mechanical ventilation, though there was no respiratory involvement, but mechanical ventilation was mainly for management of shock. 1 child died and rest all were discharged home. with a PICU stay of 4 to 6 days. So this is the first report of PIMS TS or MIS-C, which was reported from UK. And soon following that, this condition was recognized in different parts of Europe and US, and different health authorities or organization gave health advisory and criteria for how to identify these children with hyperinflammation and multi-system involvement, and how to go about their treatment. So these advisories were issued by Royal College of Pediatric and Child Health, CDC, and WHO in quick succession. Soon following that, there are many cases of MIS-C reported from United Kingdom itself, also from Italy. In this study, they reported 10 children of Kawasaki-like disease from a epicenter of in Italy at that point of time, and they noted that there is 30-fold increase in the incidence of Kawasaki-like disease during the pandemic. And after that, there are multiple reports from US which showed that this report showed that there were 95 children with MIS-C till May 10, 2020 from New York, and when they collated the information from USA, then they reported 186 children with MIS-C from 26 states from March to May 20. So at that point of time, there is a huge surge of cases with MIS-C during the first peak of pandemic. And these are the first two studies from India, one from Chennai and one from Mumbai, that documented MIS-C or PIMS-TS from India for the first time during the period of May to July 2020. And after that, there are many other reports of MIS-C from all over the India. And almost all pediatric hospitals, they are saying they saw these patients during the first peak. And also during the second peak, there is increase in number of MIS-C patients from all over the India. So MIS-C is basically a syndrome complex which is involving children. And the characteristic clinical presentation is a fever, which is very high grade and it is persistent. It is characterized by hyperinflammation or elevated inflammatory markers, and there is multisystemic involvement. And in majority of the patient, there is evidence of current or recent evidence of SARS-CoV infection in form of PCR positivity or serology positivity, or there is exposure to COVID-19 patient, or there may be COVID-like illness in last 4 to 6 weeks. And we have to exclude other common causes like bacterial infections or tropical infections in our country. So based on these 5 or 6 parameters, WHO gave the case definition. There are 5 parameters and all 5 need to be met. So first is children and adolescents 0 to 19 years of age with fever more than equal to 3 days. And then we have to include 2 of the following parameters like mucocutaneous involvement, hypotension or shock, cardiac involvement, evidence of coagulopathy, and GI symptoms. So GI symptoms are very common in MIS-C as compared to acute COVID. So this is one important clinical parameter. And the third parameter is elevated inflammatory markers, including CRP, ESR, or procalcitonin, but there could be elevation of other inflammatory markers as well. And there may be evidence of COVID-19 infection, and we have to exclude other microbial causes of inflammation like any bacterial sepsis or toxic shock syndrome. So coming to epidemiology, it is it is not acute COVID-19, but it is an uncommon post-infectious complication of COVID-19. The exact incidence is not known because we don't know what is the incidence of acute COVID in children and what is the incidence of MIS-C in children. But according to the studies from US in 2020, they noted that the incidence of lab-confirmed SARS-CoV infection in children is 322 per lakh children. And the incidence of MIS-C is very, very low, like 2 per lakh children. So incidence is very less as compared to acute COVID. So that's why it is a uncommon complication. And it is commonly seen in older children, like more than 5 years of age, and adolescents. And most of these children used to be normal. And in US population, the MIS-C is commonly noted in patients who were from African origin or Hispanic children. And there is a definite temporal correlation with acute SARS-CoV-2 infection. Again, Indian scenario, we don't know the exact incidence because there is no registry is maintained of children with acute COVID-19 or those who developing MIS-C. So exact incidence or epidemiology in children is not known, but there are many reports from India about MIS-C. So the temporal relationship between MIS-C was identified itself in 2020 when those 2 famous studies from USA, they identified that there is a gap of around 4 to 6 weeks between the peak of COVID-19 and MIS-C. So in the first diagram, the blue is peak of COVID-19 and this orange one is peak of MIS-C in US, and similarly second diagram is also showing like that. Coming to pathogenesis, there are various hypotheses. One is delayed cytokine storm. So in mild infections due to SARS-CoV, what happens is there is some amount of viral load, there is early interferon response, and there is less of inflammation, and children are able to come over the acute COVID-19 infection as compared to adults. But what is happening in severe disease or in MIS-C is there is delayed interferon response, very high inflammation, and slow viral clearance. So this could lead to formation, or this could lead to cytokine storm and various multisystemic involvement of MIS-C. The other hypothesis is IgG mediated enhancement or antibody dependent enhancement, as we see in dengue fever, which could lead to cytokine storm. This is the diagrammatic representation. The stage 1 infection in children is mostly asymptomatic or mild, and stage 2 or pulmonary phase is very uncommon in children during the first wave, but we are seeing more and more patients with pulmonary stage. And then these children may land up in a third stage, that is hyperinflammation phase, where there is activation of macrophages, T cell, generation of various cytokines and antibodies leading to hyperimmune response and multisystemic involvement, and there could be any system could be involved in MIS-C. So common clinical features are like Kawasaki-like features like fever, myalgia, mucocutaneous symptoms, abdominal symptoms like nausea, vomiting, pain abdomen, diarrhea, headache, meningismus, lethargy. There may be cardiac involvement, there may be respiratory involvement, but the respiratory involvement is not very prominent as it is seen in COVID-19 in children and especially in adults. There may be hematological involvement, or there may be hyponatremia and renal failure. And what is required is lab evidence of current or past infection with SARS-CoV-2 infection.
फुल यही है, यही फुल है, अभी तो चल रहा है। और
this is the one systematic review that we conducted, and we included studies till July 10, 2020, and 18 studies, including 833 children with MIS-C were noted, and their median age was 9 years. The common features were fever, GI symptoms, rash, conjunctival injection, respiratory symptoms, and oromucosal changes. And in these patients, the SARS-CoV antibody was positive in around 85% of patients, and RT-PCR was positive in around 37% of patients. So coming to investigations or how to proceed with investigation, so we have to follow the tiered approach. First tier investigation includes blood count, including differential, CRP, ESR, RFT, LFT, and we have to do this SARS-CoV RT-PCR as well as serology, and we have to exclude other possible etiologies considering the overall clinical presentation. The second tier investigation include blood gas, lactate, procalcitonin, and ferritin, and if there is facility available, then we can go ahead with various cytokine levels. Coagulation profile, troponin, BNP, and LDH. Chest X-ray, ECG, echocardiography, specifically to look for ejection fraction, coronary arteries, pericardial effusion, and valvular changes, and other tests based on the organ system involvement. So when we have to enter the second tier investigation, whenever there is an acute life-threatening presentation, like child is having shock, so we can, at that point, we can directly go ahead with both first and second tier investigations. Or if on first tier investigation, we noted that there is elevated CRP, elevated ESR, or there is lymphopenia, thrombocytopenia, hyponatremia, neutrophilia, and hypoalemia. So these are two scenarios when we have to enter second tier investigations. And based on the clinical presentation, these investigation can be repeated 24 or 48 hourly. So in that systematic review, we noted that there is myocardial dysfunction in significant proportion of patients, like 60% of patients had myocardial dysfunction. 40% patients had any form of coronary artery abnormalities, and 16% had coronary artery dilatation or aneurysm. Very important, it is important to know that even at discharge, around 10% of patients had some form of residual myocardial dysfunction. Coming to treatment, so there are various treatment guidelines, but we have devised this treatment strategy, and we classify children into mild and moderate to severe disease. Mild is if there is no vasoactive requirement, there is minimal respiratory support, or minimal signs of organ injury, whereas moderate to severe illness, there is shock or significant oxygen requirement in form of HFNC, non-invasive ventilation or mechanical ventilation, or if there is any other organ dysfunction. So in treatment, in all patients, we have to give broad spectrum antibiotics and antimicrobial agents to cover for tropical infection till they are ruled out. Aspirin in the dose of 3 to 5 mg per kg in all admitted children. IVIG is first tier therapy in dose of 2 mg per kg over 12 to 24 hours, and maximum dose is 100 mg, 100 gram in a day. If there is evidence of fluid overload or myocardial dysfunction, then this dose can be given over 48 hours. And GI prophylaxis in form of proton pump inhibitors, as these patients are going to receive steroids. In mild disease, the methylprednisolone in dose of 1 to 2 mg per kg per day. And if the patients with mild disease, they are not responding or they are worsening, then we can consider intensification of treatment. And then we have to taper steroid over next 2 to 3 days so that we can prevent the relapse of hyperinflammation. Whereas in moderate to severe diseases, the methylprednisolone was given in the doses of 10 to 30 mg per kg per day for 1 to 3 days, and then we'll taper to 1 to 2 mg per kg per day once there is clinical response, and then we have to taper steroids over 6 to 8 weeks. If despite this treatment there is no clinical benefit or there is worsening, then we can consider second dose IVIG and other immunomodulators like anakinra, infliximab, or tocilizumab. So this is just a simple diagram showing the treatment of MIS-C in mild, moderate, and severe cases. Coming to antiplatelets and anticoagulation, aspirin, again, it's given to all hospitalized patients in dose of 3 to 5 mg per kg per day. And we have to avoid aspirin if there is active bleeding or there is significant risk of bleeding and platelet count is less than 80,000. We have to continue aspirin for at least 4 to 6 weeks. At that point of time, we have to document that platelets are normal and coronary arteries are normal, and then we have to stop the aspirin. Anticoagulation, there are very specific indications, like if coronary artery aneurysm is very large, if there are multiple or complex aneurysm, if there is moderate to severe LV dysfunction, or if there are presence of thrombus, then these are the indication for anticoagulation along with aspirin. So when we have to discharge this patient, when they are clinically stable and cardiac functions are normal without any vasoactive drugs, there is no pyrexia and inflammatory markers are decreasing, and when this state is stabilized over 24 to 48 hours, then at that point of time we can discharge this patient. And follow-up is very important. We have to follow up at 1 to 2 weeks and 4 to 6 weeks after discharge, clinical evaluation, and we have to do echo for ejection fraction and coronary artery changes. So during the period of September 2020 and January 21, we had seen 40 children with MIS-C, and this number increased to 60 after the period of January. And the age of these children is 7 years and range of 5 to 10 years. So most of these children are older. The males were more common, like 65% were male. And among these patients, the SARS-CoV-2 antibody was positive in 66% of patients, and PCR was positive in only 10% of these patients. The most common features were fever, mucocutaneous features, abdominal symptoms. So these abdominal symptoms was noted in 72% of patients, which is a very characteristic sign. And very few patients had respiratory symptoms, but these symptoms are not like that of acute COVID. They are just cough and rapid breathing. Among investigation, lymphopenia, thrombocytopenia, elevated CRP, procalcitonin, ferritin, and other inflammatory markers were also high. Coming to echocardiography findings, the ejection fraction was low in around 70% of patients. We noted some coronary artery aneurysm or dilatation in 20% of patients, and only one patient had giant coronary aneurysm. And at discharge, 15% patients had some form of residual myocardial dysfunction. Among treatment, these patients were admitted to PICU, like 85% patient required PICU admission, and 22% required invasive mechanical ventilation. 80% had shock and required fluid boluses and vasoactive drugs. 45% had AK, but they recovered spontaneously without any need of renal replacement therapy. Coming to specific treatment, all patients received IVIG. Steroid and IVIG combination was given in 85% of patients. 80% received antiplatelet or aspirin, and very few received heparin or low molecular weight heparin. The length of PICU and hospital stay was 5 and 7 days respectively, and there were 2 deaths. These deaths were within 12 and 24 hours of hospitalization, and these 2 children were presented in acute decompensated state, and we were not able to resuscitate them properly, which highlight that the diagnosis of MIS-C need to be kept very high whenever we see any patient with prolonged fever and they need appropriate resuscitation. And if they go into decompensated stage, then it's very difficult to salvage them. So coming to summary, MIS-C is not uncommon complication of SARS-CoV-2 infection as we thought at the beginning of pandemic. It is basically a post-infectious hyperinflammatory syndrome with multisystemic involvement, and we need to keep a very high degree of suspicion in any child who present with prolonged fever, GI symptoms, and shock. Case definitions are clear. The investigation pathway is also clear, and management algorithms are more or less standardized, but they are evolving as we're seeing more and more patients. The usual treatment is supportive care, IVIG, steroids, and aspirin. Anticoagulants had very limited and specific indications. Though these patients appear to be sick and they are very critical, the outcome is usually good with moderate, with a specific and supportive care. And since we are in the second peak of MIS-C, we should be prepared to deal with such children, and we may see more and more pediatric patients with MIS-C in next 4 to 6 weeks, because this is post-infectious process. So we should prepare our resources accordingly. So this is all I have to discuss. So I'm especially thankful to Professor Banani and team SGPJ for invitation, and my team at PGI. And thank you all for patient listening.